So what we've been talking about at Cruise is we've been talking about how we can live uncaged. And so for us, what that means is every single one of us at some point or another, we come to a place where, man, we experience defeat. We experience loss. We experience insecurity, shame. And tonight we're going to be talking about how you can break free from the cage of fear. Because I believe every single one of us in here at some point or another, we deal with fear on some level. Like for some of us, we deal with fear of, not fitting in. Some of us, we deal with fear of, not measuring up. Me personally, I deal with fear. I deal with insecurity, but I deal with fear from anxiety, that I'm going to be completely out of control and that I'm going to get up here to speak and then I'm going to have a panic attack and have to run off. Like I have fears of my own, and every single one of us, we have fears of our own. And at the same time, I believe that in order for us to actually live life the way that we want to live, we've got to be able to break free from the fears that bind us. And talking to our interns and talking to some of our leaders getting into tonight, we really wanted to dive into, for you guys, what is your deepest fear? And we're diving in off of what we talked about on Sunday, which is the fear of failure and the fear of stepping out and kind of the fear of missing out on what God has for us. But honestly, I believe where you guys are, and I think where a lot of us are right now, this is a little bit different. If I'm honest, I think that almost 95% of us, we deal with some sort of fear about the people around us. We have fear of not fitting in. We deal with the chronic fear of not being liked. We fear what our best friends are saying about us behind our back. We're deathly afraid that when we go to school, we're not going to have somebody to sit next to in lunch. We're afraid that when we go to church, our friend's not going to be there and we're going to feel alone. 95% of the fear that you deal with is fear that revolves around other people. And I think when we deal with this fear, there's a couple responses that we have. There's one, I think, if we deal with the fear of not fitting in, I think as a response to that, we're going to do everything in our power to try to fit in. Like if we deal with the chronic fear of not fitting in, then we're going to do everything in our power, regardless of what that means for us, to fit in. Like if we have a fear of people talking behind our backs, what we're going to do is we're going to overcompensate for that and do everything in our power to be liked by everybody so they have nothing but good things to say about us behind our backs. Like as if we're dealing with a constant fear of having to measure up to other people's opinions and having to kind of fit in this box of what other people has for us, well then we're going to become perfectionists and live our whole life trying to be perfect in every area to kind of subside that fear. And what I've noticed to be so fatal for so many of us, and this is what took me out in school, and the temptation is still there, is that in an attempt to embrace and get rid of the fear of not being able to fit in, what we will do is in an attempt to fit in and be a part and hang out with the cool crowd and actually be somebody, what we will do is subconsciously we will begin to mirror our life around the people who we want to fit in with. And that means regardless of what we want to do internally, we will begin to like who they like, hang out with who they hang out with, drink what they drink, smoke what they smoke, hang out with who they hang out with, do what they do, and become them. And all in an attempt to fit in. It doesn't matter if they're doing something we said we would never do. In an attempt to fit in, we'll put our own personal bias and convictions aside and what we know to be best aside because we just want to be a part. You need to understand that desire is a good thing. Like every single one of us, myself included, we desire to be a part of something. We desire to be a part of a friend group. We desire to belong to something. Like that is a God-given desire to want to be a part. But God is not going to cause you to compromise who you are to fit in and connect with people. You need to understand in your life, you do not have to compromise to connect, but you do have to be courageous. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but so many people have compromised who they are, who are living less than lives when they could be living so much better, all because they want to fit in with people that, to be honest, they don't even like. They just want to be where they are. And so how do we navigate and reconcile and reckon with the fear that causes us to be people that we don't even want to be? And the scariest part about this fear is that sometimes it'll lead you to actually achieving the thing that you want. Like, for example, if you're dealing with a constant fear of not fitting in, that fear will motivate you to fit in. And for those of you in here who are in that place, and we're not going to call anybody out, but we want to identify something. is that once you get to a place where you've been so motivated by fear and you've so compartmentalized and boxed in your life to where you look exactly like the person you're hanging out with, even though that's not you, you're going to get to a place where you realize that fitting in was not what you truly longed for. Because once you do fit in, you'll realize that that relationship is not based on truth because it's not based around the real you. It's based around a false you. And what's going to happen, and some of you, I guarantee you might be here because I was. I finally got to a place where I fit in. Finally got to a place where I was the cool kid. And I desire to be a part of something. But the constant paranoia flooding through my head that said, if they really knew me, would they still want me? Like, if they truly knew my hobbies, would they still hang out with me? Like, if they truly knew everything about me, like the parts that I'm insecure about because they don't like the parts about me that they're picking apart in other people and I've hidden so that I don't feel picked apart, would they like me? See, the reality is this fear will motivate you to actually get what you think you want. But God, you need to understand there's a difference between fitting in and belonging. Like, I think we have a desire to belong, but we call it fit in because the reality is when you fit in, you have to become unfit, right? That right now we believe every single one of you are perfectly created in the image of God. Like right now you are different on purpose. And every single one of us, we're trying to live these perfect lives that match the people that we want, not realizing that they're hiding just like you are. And it's this fear that we all deal with, fear of not being liked, fear of being rejected that causes us to change who we are, that honestly has developed a counterfeit connection. That I think that there are some people in here who are best friends with people that they would consider their worst enemies. That there are people in here who you're best friends and you gossip with the people and you gossip about other people when they're doing the same thing you're doing. You're just hiding it because you actually now get to be a part of the cool conversation. Like every single one of us, we deal with fear to some aspect, but I'm telling you there is a better life for you beyond fitting in, but to where you can actually belong, where you can actually accept and belong yourself, way belong somebody else, way before somebody else comes and accepts you. Like it is actually possible for you to love yourself, and that's okay because God created you the way that you are. He says that you're a masterpiece, and He loves the way you are right now, you and all your imperfections. See, the reality is there's a life waiting for you to where you can be so confident in who you are that if they don't want to be a part of your life, you can literally say, it's your loss and move on. But how do we do that? Like, how do we deal with the constant pressure of the fear of not fitting in, not being rejected? And how do we actually achieve genuine connection with people? Like, I'm talking the kind of friendships that even on your worst day, they don't judge you. That if you kill someone, they'll hide the body. Like, I'm talking about friendships that are ride or die. Friendships that you can call on a Saturday night at 12 o'clock when you're passed out somewhere and they're going to go pick you up and still maintain and help protect your reputation on Monday. I'm talking about the friendships that you need to survive, and not just survive but thrive, middle school and high school. How do we actually have a relationship and friendship with people where we don't have to constantly be thinking, are they talking about me this time? How do we do that? And I think there's two things that we can do. We're going to dive more into the conversation of it in a little bit. But I do believe there's two things that we've got to do and cultivate in our life to be able to actually have those friendships. Because in the age of social media, you can feel so connected because you have a follow and a like on here, but it's counterfeit. So how do we actually achieve and cultivate real connection with people? The first thing I think you've got to be able to do in your own life is you've got to value vulnerability. And I don't know if you all know what vulnerability means. It's kind of a scary word, and to some it's misconstrued as weakness. But vulnerability is this, and I want you guys to pay attention because this is huge. Vulnerability is the willingness to be exposed. Call it emotional exposure. It's you having the willingness in yourself that every single part of you is exposed. Your innermost thoughts, your weaknesses, your struggles, everything about you is exposed to the outside world. And the problem with being vulnerable is like salt in an open wound. You're walking through high school with mask off. Valuing vulnerability is to live with a mask off and to be real 24/7, 100% of the time. Valuing vulnerability is this. It's giving other people the ability to fully see you and make the decision if they want to be a part of your life or not. And then giving them the grace when they say they don't want to be a part. And it's saying, you know what? It's your loss. Because you're going to realize you're different. And different deserves company. And different does not fit in. Different belongs to itself. And in order for you to fully connect with other people, you're going to have to come to a level of acceptance of yourself. And then when you begin to have confidence in yourself, love who you are, you're going to begin to identify, those aren't my friends. These are my best friends. I don't need to be hanging out with them. And that goes to my second point. You need to value vulnerability, but you need to understand this truth. And I want everybody to get this. You do not have to be friends, but you do have to be friendly. I think the biggest thing we deal with is we feel like we have to be friends with everybody. That is not biblical. The Bible says that so far as it depends on us, live at peace. But you don't have to have close-knit relationships with everybody. And I know what this does, because the moment I say that, this breeds a kind of an arrogant, oh, I'm going to do me then, and if you don't like it, well, no, you're wrong, and you're fake. Because if you're going to afford yourself the liberty to be yourself and judge other people because they're being themselves, then you're fake. You need to understand that you don't have to be friends with everybody. Some friendships are toxic, and you need to leave. Some friendships, you need to afford them the opportunity to grow, and you need to afford yourself the opportunity to back away, because, man, right now they're at a different stage of life, and you probably don't need to be involved in what they're involved in. What they're doing, not who they are, but what they're doing. See, you don't have to be friends with all these people that you think you have to be friends, but you do have to be friendly. And so that means for every single one of us to actually cultivate real connection and friendship in our life. Man, it's going to school, exposing yourself, letting people know, you know what, man, how are you doing? I'm struggling this week, man. Not, how are you doing? I'm fine, bro. No, it's taking the mask off and being real. You know what, man, I'm struggling. You know I have all this status and reputation at school, but I am weak in this area. Man, I'm struggling with lust. Man, I'm struggling at home because I feel like since my dad left, I got to grow up and be the man, but I just want to be a kid, bro. And see, what fake does is puts on a mask and pretends you're okay, but you're human. You're not a robot. And so to be vulnerable is to be open. And once you be vulnerable and once you're open and you allow other people to see you, you now get the thing that you actually long for, which is to be seen. Because I'm telling you guys, at the end of your life, you don't want to look back on your relationships and think, did they like me or did they like their version of me? Like, you need to understand, like we talked about the other week, you're enough. Every single person in here, you are enough. Whether you have an L on your hat or whether you think you're somebody who just takes L's, CJ. I know the reality is every single person in here is different. And that means that every single person here is not going to connect and fit in with the other people in here. Because some of you you like weird stuff. And dude, we can be cool, but I don't really feel like hanging out with you because you're kind of weird. But it's still living at peace with each other. And so there's a way that you can come into this room and live at peace with everybody. And not have to be friends with them. Man, you got your crew, and that's enough. That's why we do crews. And that's why we're about to break up new right now. Because when we talk about fear, I'm telling you, a 6th grade girl is dealing with a different type of fear than a 12th grade guy. And so you guys are at different stages of life. And so what I want you guys to do, and I challenge you guys to do, is cultivate real connection in your life by beginning to be vulnerable and just be open. Let people in on what you're going through. That's not blasting what you're going through all over social media. That's not being a fake. No, it's simply owning where you're at on your journey so somebody else can lend a helping hand to get you where you want to be. And it's understanding, man, you don't have to be friends with everybody in here, but you do have to be friendly. Every single person deserves that honor, dignity, and respect. And I believe, man, as you guys begin to do this, it's a lifelong journey, but you'll realize that belonging, this is a better life than simply fitting in. That you can actually be in a relationship with just 2 people and feel more alive than ever before when you were in a crowd of 200.